Expecting, I just knocked my paper over. I just need to know what's gonna happen. Controversy. Hello? We're slowly getting through this list. I feel like I'm yapping. Of them going down the slippery slope. Hello? He could throw me around any time of day. Okay, anyway, moving on. Hi, hello, and good evening. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then hi, I'm Helena, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 books of 2024 with 5 honorable mentions. And I have my Goodreads wrap up for 2024, and we're going to go through that because I love that they do this because this is so cute. So I read a total of 29 books, which originally my goal was 10, and then I upped it to 15, and then I upped it to 25. I read 11,709 pages total. My shortest book was Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton, which that was my last book of the year as well, and I absolutely loved that actually. I love that book, and I would read it if it was a full book and not just a novella. My longest book was Zodiac Academy, number 7, but we should not be surprised because those books are extremely long. My average book length was 403 pages, which is, I feel like is pretty average, honestly. My most shelved was Fourth Wing, obviously, and my least shelved was Kissed by Death. So, which I don't see anyone ever talking about that series, so that makes total sense too. Okay, let's get started with my top 10 and the 5 honorable mentions. I think we're going to start with the honorable mentions, and these are in no particular order whatsoever, so I'm just going to kind of list them off, and I'm not going to grab all of these books from the shelf. I just don't feel like doing that right now, so I'm just going to put pictures up on the screen. So the 5 honorable mentions we have are Hopeless by Elsie Silver. If you watched my vlog of me reading the entire Chestnut Springs series, you know how much I loved Hopeless. Hopeless is a lot of people's least favorite in the series. I loved that one. It was so just wholesome, and it was very sad, and it was a very heartwarming story, but also still have a very deep side to that story. I loved all of those books, don't get me wrong, but Hopeless, I just loved Beau so much, and I can't stop talking about Beau. I will always talk about Beau. I love him so much. Our next honorable mention is A Broken Blade. This was actually the very first book that I read in 2024, and I absolutely devoured it. I loved that book. It was such a good book to start 2024 off with. It's about this girl who is called the King's Blade. She's basically an assassin for the king and just, gets rid of whoever he wants her to get rid of, basically. And so she goes around and killing all the king's enemies and people that have wronged him and stuff like that. And then there's the Shadow that just randomly pops up. That's what they call him, is the Shadow, who is basically trying to lead a rebellion against the king, and so she is tasked with taking down the Shadow. And that is all I can say, but it is, without spoiling more, but it is so freaking good. I love Melissa Blair's writing. Our next honorable mention is All In, which is the 3rd one in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and oh my god, I love that one. That one was really good. I don't know if I can rank them between which ones were my favorite, just because I loved them all. I especially love Killer Instincts. That one was probably my top one. It might be Killer Instincts, All In, The Naturals, and then Bad Blood. I don't know. I can't choose. They're all tied. Okay, they're all tied first because I can't choose. I can't rank that series. I can't really talk about All In because it is a series, so I can't really talk about the premise of All In. But The Naturals, it's like a teenage version of Criminal Minds, basically. And these teenagers are recruited for this program in the FBI where they are called The Naturals. And they help solve cold cases until one day they get wrapped up into a bunch of active cases. And so then the FBI is finally like, okay, screw the cold case, I guess, and we're just gonna have you guys help on active cases because you guys are just getting into all this trouble. So yeah, each book you get more and more on each character in the series, which is really nice. So like the first one was a lot about Cassie, the second one was a lot about Dean, and then the third one was a lot about Sloane. In Bad Blood you get kind of a mix between all of them. Like you get a lot on Michael in the first little bit of Bad Blood, and then it's more about Cassie again because it's like the final wrap up. And then next on the honorable mentions was actually the last book that I read in 2024, which is Satan's Affair. It's the novella. It's a Haunting Adeline spin-off, basically, novella. So Satan's Affair is a little novella on Sibby, who was the crazy little doll who helped Zayd, those weird guys in the cult, in Haunting Adeline. So this is her story, and it is so good. I was rooting for the henchmen the whole time, okay? And then towards the end when she was in the facility and was like, they're not real, and I was like, girl, yes they are. Don't believe her. Don't believe her. But it was really good. It was a really good book, and honestly I would read her story if it was a full-length book too. I will say that a million times over because I loved that story. I love a little psychotic little. And our last honorable mention is, of course, Zodiac Academy number 7. I had to put this on the honorable mentions because honestly that book destroyed me. And this goes for the same thing as All In. It is the middle of a series, so I can't necessarily talk about it, but everyone knows the Zodiac Academy series, okay? Everyone knows what the Zodiac Academy series is about and if they like it or if they don't. And I've seen a lot of controversy on this series. A lot of people love it and a lot of people think it's trash, and I feel like there's literally no in between. I'm on this side. I love this series so much with my whole heart and soul. Time for our top 10. So we're gonna start from 10 going all the way to 1. So coming in at number 10 is What Did You Do by Janine O'Reilly. I absolutely loved this series, and as soon as I finished the second one I pre-ordered the third one, and it is coming out soon, so I will be reading the third one very soon. And it is supposed to be a 4-book series, so I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. There's like a love triangle, and Janine O'Reilly's plot twists are absolutely insane. The ending of book 1, I was like, I was not expecting that whatsoever. The ending of book 2 shooketh. I never in my wildest dreams would have guessed that ending. Never ever. Book 1 started off really slow. Book 1, it didn't start to pick up until probably like maybe not halfway through, but like at least 100 pages in. It was like we were talking about the mushrooms and Crazy Earl or whatever his name was, and I was like, girl, get to the action please, because I'm getting sick of this. But once you get to the point where she's actually in the fairyland, it is so good. So good. And like I said, her plot twists are just out of this world. Like I literally would never in my wildest dreams guess that that was where book 2 was gonna go. Coming in at number 9, we have Haunting Adeline. I've seen the controversy on this book in towing the line of being consensual or not consensual, which yes, it does very much toe that line. You can tell deep down that she wants, this sounds so weird, but you can tell deep down that she actually wanted it, and she obviously enjoyed it, hence of everything throughout. People who haven't read this book are probably like, what is this girl talking about? I mean, I feel like a lot happened, and I feel like nothing happened all at once. It was really cool though to see the mystery of her trying to find out like who murdered her great grandmother. I love that we had a subplot of mystery while we were also getting the main plot of Zaid and the cult and all of that and just everything. I feel like it had a lot going on. I actually did really like it. I'm excited to read the second one. Coming in at number 8 is Immortal Dark. I don't know how to say this author's name, so I'm very, very sorry, but Immortal Dark was so good. I actually loved it. It's dark academia, and we have the mystery of trying to find Kadan's sister, which is the main girl. So we're trying to find her sister this entire time, and she thinks that it's their house vampire that took her. I kind of started to guess the end. Once I got more towards the end, I kind of figured that she was there of her own volition, of her own free will, and yeah. But I loved the whole setting of it. I love the dark academia. I just love that setting so much. The plot was pretty good, and seeing how the unique like system of the world was. Okay, coming in at number 7 is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. I freaking loved this book so much. The magic system is so unique. I have never read anything like this book. This is my all-time favorite book for magic systems, just because it is so unique that there's just so much to it. At first it felt like so much, and I was not quite getting it at first, but then as I kept reading and I was like, okay, this is actually making more sense. It's actually like clicking in my brain that this is how the magic system works, just because it was so intricate and it was very well detailed. I think I like One Dark Window better than Two Twisted Crowns. I love Two Twisted Crowns, don't get me wrong, and I like that we got different perspectives in Two Twisted Crowns. That series was just so good. I did love book 2 because it was so good. It was such a good conclusion to the duology, and I do love that it was just a duology. Coming in at number 6, A Shadow Crown by Melissa Blair. This is the second one in the Halfling Saga from A Broken Blade, which is the first one, which I talked about in the honorable mentions. This is book 2. This one was just so freaking good. I have not read book 3 yet, and like I said, book 4 just came out. Book 2 was so good. This is where we get more of the rebellion happening. This is where we get more of her realizing that, hey, this king is messed up in the head and I don't want to serve him anymore, basically. She's trying to learn to trust the rebellion and their people, and they're trying to trust her at the same time, and just things keep happening along the way that are making it very difficult. And then we have a little bit of a hint of maybe a little bit of a love triangle or something, but towards the end we got more of Riven and Killian, and I don't know which one I would choose. I love them both, just in 2 totally different ways. Like, Killian is the prince, but Riven is the shadow, and it left off on a pretty big cliffhanger. Like, stuff happened right at the end, and I was like, wait, hold up, what? So I need to read book 3 like pronto. Number 5 is, you guessed it, Powerless by Elsie Silver, because as I said earlier, I absolutely love Jasper. Jasper is my all-time favorite. He even tops Cade, okay? And I I love Cade. I love Cade and I love Bo. But Jasper, he's just on another level, okay? I loved Jasper so much. He was very deeply traumatized and he has his issues. He had his problems. He had his things that he needed to work through, and guess what? He worked through them. He worked through them for her. And she helped him work through them, obviously, but he got there. I think the reason why I love Jasper and Bo so much is because their stories were intertwined. So like in Powerless, we got a lot of what was happening with Bo at that point in time, and then we finally get what actually happened to Bo in Powerless in his own book. So I think that's why I love both of them so much, is because their stories were intertwined so much. Like each book had so much of each other in it, and their little bromance is just so cute. It's not even like a bromance, it's literally a brother bond. They're just so cute. I love them both. Coming in at number 4 is Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. Now, you might be thinking, why isn't Butcher and Blackbird on this list? Listen, Linda. I have some things to say. And if you watch my vlog of getting out of a book hangover from Fourth Wing, I read Leather and Lark. And I gave my full thoughts and opinions in that vlog. But guess what? I'll say it again. Because I loved Leather and Lark so much more than I loved Butcher and Blackbird. And I liked Butcher and Blackbird. Don't get me wrong. I did. But Leather and Lark was just top tier. I loved Lachlan and Lark so much more. I feel like we got so much more on Lark than we ever got on Sloane. And don't get me wrong, I love Sloane and Rowena, I do, but I loved Lachlan and Lark. I loved their dynamic, and I feel like she's the happiest go luckiest girl in the entire world, even with her serial deleting or multiple deleting. She's still, she makes crafts out of her victims. That is the most girly, happy-go-lucky thing that I've ever seen. Now we're getting into the top 3, so we're almost done. You won't have to listen to me yammer on for much longer. So, number 3 is Killer Instincts. This is book 2 in the Natural series. I loved this one because this was all about Dean and his father, who is a serial killer. And which you find that out pretty early on in book 1, so that's not really a spoiler, but it is all about Dean and his dad and how their case now relates to Dean's dad, and so they go to him for, help, and it just turns out so badly. There's just so many plots and twists and turns in this book that I loved it. It was very intricately woven. I think I'm having a stroke. The plot was very intricately woven. I don't know. Anyway, moving along past this point. I'm done talking at this point. The plot was crazy. How about that? The plot was crazy because apparently I can't say those words. The plot was crazy. I loved the plot. I was not expecting half of the stuff that happened. And this is where who she chose in the little love triangle that was happening in the first one. And yeah, it was very good and I just loved it. So, and I love Dean. I'm a Dean girly. And coming in number 2 is Serpent in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. We should not be surprised that this is number 2. This whole series has taken BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube by storm. Carissa Broadbent has blown up. Unfortunately, I've heard some not so great things about the 3rd one that was just released. I'm still gonna read it, and I bet you I will still love it because I am a very easy reader to please. I am not that picky with my books. Yes, I give like 0.5, 0.25, and 0.75 ratings, But honestly, I feel like I'm still not that harsh of a rater. Like, I still give so many books 5 stars that I'm not that picky of a rater. Serpent and the Wings of Night was just so freaking good, and I definitely want to reread this book because it was so freaking good. It was just constant action. Something was happening at every point in that book, and it was just such good enemies to lovers, back to enemies, which is unheard of, at least in the books that I've been reading. I love that trope. The enemies to lovers, love. Enemies to lovers, back to enemies? Absolutely god tier. Like, yes please. To talk about my number 1 favorite book of 2024 is my all-time favorite freaking book of basically ever, and that is Fourth Wing. Little round of applause for the Fourth Wing. Yes, I'm in my Fourth Wing era, and guess what? It is perfect timing because Onyx Storm comes out later this month, and so guess what? It is perfect timing because everyone else is also in their Fourth Wing era. So yes, I'm a little late to the train, but I don't even care because it was just so freaking good. Buddy reading it with my dad, my mom, my aunt, and I think just made it 10 times more amazing because I got to actually talk about it with someone who's actually read it instead of me just blabbering on to my husband who has no idea what's happening. And it was just like Serpent and the Wings of Night. Something was happening at all times. Something was going down at all times. That ending, sobbing my eyes out for 2 days. For 2 days. Like, Rebecca, why you gotta do that to me?
Rebecca! Rebecca! You cannot hide from me, Rebecca!
But yeah, so that is why it is my number 1 book of 2024, because it was just so freaking good. I would give my soul to read that again for the first time. I would. I'd give my soul for it, and it'd be the easiest transaction I've ever made in my life. That will tell you how much I loved Fourth Wing. Thank you so much for listening to me yap on about my top 10 books plus my 5 honorable mentions of 2024. And I can't wait to do this again next year. Let's hope for a good reading year, and I hope you guys have a good reading year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!